please bless his precious wife and children and grandchildren. Give him strength, give him sharpness tonight. I know he's probably a little tired in his body, if that's possible for him. But God, I pray you would renew his strength like an.
I want to hear some fuck news. I'm sorry. This man has gone to the Supreme Court. Yes, Trump has asked the Supreme Court to block y'all food stamps. He is asking them to not allow 42 million people in the country to not receive food this month. And he's asking them to do this shit in 2 hours, y'all. So this may be a reason why some of y'all haven't gotten y'all food stamps just yet fully.
So the Supreme Court sided with Donald Trump, and basically the judge tried to order Donald Trump to pay back all those SNAP benefits that was lost since the first of this month, and the Supreme Court basically vetoed that. So kids and elderly are about to starve. They're going to continue to starve this month. Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen. This is America. A literal ballroom is more important than feeding human beings. Like, we're taking so much effort and not feeding people. It's crazy.
So some breaking news, folks. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court in the United States has sided with Donald Trump and is allowing the Trump administration to pause SNAP benefits.
So I shut everything down for an hour or two tonight to hang out with MJ, and I came back online and found out that the Trump administration appealed the food stamp ruling, the SNAP ruling, all the way to the Supreme Court. They went to the Supreme Court to say, don't make us spend this money to feed the hungriest people in this country. I just had to come back on here and tell you that in case you didn't know, because that to me is perhaps the most insane thing I have ever heard in my life. I already did a video today about the fact that they appealed this ruling to the First Circuit, but now they've gone to the Supreme Court because they're so indignant. They're so angry that a court is trying to force them to spend money on the neediest people in our country. Let alone $40 billion to Argentina, no problem. $3.5 trillion in tax cuts for the very wealthiest people and the biggest corporations, the Exxons, the Amazons in our country, no problem. Ballroom, 300 million and counting, no problem. Trump parties at Mar-a-Lago and in the White House, no problem. But to the Supreme Court for the SNAP ruling, because how dare you ask the government to spend 1 penny of its money on the poor, the struggling, and the needy, and this from an administration that sells Bibles with this president's name on them. This is insanity. Tell everybody you know. Make sure they know. People are not following the news. Tell them that the Trump administration is going to the Supreme Court to beg them for relief from this ruling. Because that is the only kind of relief they understand, is the relief that frees them from the obligation to think about anybody who is needier than them. Shame on them.
Don't you think it's so remarkable how the US would rather cut SNAP benefits, which, by the way, make up only 1.5% of all federal spending in the US? That's per fiscal year. So 1.5% are going to SNAP. So that's $100 billion. Okay? And you look on the other types of federal spending, specifically the defense, so the military, that's getting 13% in each fiscal year. So you've got 1.5% for SNAP, 13% military. Oh, the logical solution is to cut SNAP. Does that make any sense? Like, even if they cut the military spending, just put it like 2% less, made it 11%. They would still be able to cover SNAP benefits for Americans.
Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Robi Masaga. Now, today we've got big breaking news that hits at the heart of what matters: food, dignity, and survival. The Supreme Court of the United States has issued an emergency order in favor of Donald Trump administration that allows a pause in full funding of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, benefits for millions of Americans. Now, families who rely on food assistance are facing yet another threat. In this video, we are going to unpack what this means, who's affected, and why it matters. And yes, we'll voice our strong objections to this decision. I'll break it down, give you the facts, my reaction, and I want to hear also from you what your thoughts are. So leave a comment, and if you've not subscribed to this channel, also remember to do so, and leave a like, also share the video as well. First, let's look at what's happened so far. We are talking about approximately 42 million Americans depending on SNAP, the largest food aid safety net in America. Because of a federal government shutdown and funding dispute, the Trump administration challenged a low court order to release full benefits, seeking instead to issue only partially payments. Then the Supreme Court, it stepped in via Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, issuing an administrative stay that paused the full funding requirements while an appeals court sorts the case. That pause means that millions of families face delays, uncertainty, and potential hunger. Think about it. Children's going to bed hungry, seniors unable to afford groceries, working families stretched to the brink. This isn't just policy. This is real life. So what's the larger picture? It's about how we value human need, how the safety net is handled under political stress, how a government shutdown becomes someone's empty plate. If you've been following hunger issues, food bank lines are already growing. This decision threatens to deepen that pain. Now, let's dive deeper. The moral, social, and political ramification of this ruling, and why I firmly believe it was a mistake for the Supreme Court under the circumstances to side with the administration imposing full SNAP benefits. One, the human cost when the government delays or reduces food aid payments, the consequences ripple immediately. We are talking about households that are already living paycheck to pantry. For many, SNAP is not a luxury. It's the difference between eating and skipping meals. According to reports, the program supports about 1 in 8 Americans. If benefits are cut or delayed, the result is predictable. Hunger increases, food pantry demand skyrockets, nutrition suffers, kids go to school on an empty stomach, seniors fall deep into vulnerability. Even one judge in the low court warned that withholding benefits would cause irreparable harm. Now, I want you to picture a family. 2 working parents, 1 part-time job each, little time, exhausted. They rely on SNAP to bridge the gap so the kids can eat. Now, imagine the card arrives late or within 30 to 35% less than expected. The fear, the stress is enormous. And because hunger isn't just about missed meals, it affects health, school performance, employment stability, long-term outcomes. Number 2, the role of government and safety net. One of the core duties of government is to protect the vulnerable, especially when markets fail and private charity cannot fill the gap. Food security is fundamental. When the safety net wobbles, the consequences aren't abstract. They are immediate. With a government shutdown being the overreaching issue here, we see how political gridlock translates into meals not served. The administration's argument was that the contingency funds or other programs should not be tapped, that it was not legally required to use them. Fair enough. Legal arguments matters, but from a public policy standpoint, the decision to allow a pause sends a very different signal, that food assistance can be treated as negotiable, as contingent on political battles. When the safety net becomes negotiable, trust erodes. Families that rely on SNAP aren't swayed by legal nuance. They are asking, will the food come this month? Will I have to choose between paying rent or feeding my kids? The government should safeguard certainty in these areas, not allow crisis by default. Number 3, why the Supreme Court decision matters. The Supreme Court emergency order doesn't resolve the case on merit. It simply poses the lower court's mandate, but the effect is real. It allows partial or delay payments while the appeals court considers the issue. That means those 42 million people, the data says this many are impacted because time matters. The longer the delay, the worse the outcomes. Food insecurity isn't reversed overnight. One missed or reduced payment can trigger cascading consequence. Going into debt, skipping meals, relying on food banks that may already be stretched thin, and this decision sets precedent. If a safety net program like SNAP can be posed through an emergency order during a funding dispute, what about other federal supports? The logic cracks from food to housing to healthcare. This is about values. If we say that food assistance is essential, then hindering it is not just a policy choice, it's a moral statement. It says, we'll decide whether you eat based on our funding was. Number 4, the political dimension. Now, let's be frank. This is a political battle, not just a legal one. The administration argued that tapping another fund would raid other programs and set precedent. Meanwhile, states that moved quickly to issue full payments are now competing for finite funds. What gets lost in the legal filings is the real people in lunch lines. The pregnant mother, the senior on fixed income, the single parent working 2 shifts. By allowing this pause, the Supreme Court has inadvertently given license to a strategy. Use shutdowns or funding gaps as leverage, knowing that the court might step in but only temporarily, leaving millions in the limbo. That's unconscionable. Number 5, the way forward. So what should happen? That is the question that most of us are asking. First, full timely funding of SNAP must be non-negotiable. Food security cannot be a pawn in appropriations. Second, policymakers must recognize that the safety net needs built-in protections, automatic continuing resolutions, contingency funds explicitly earmarked so that when shutdowns happen, people aren't left starving. Third, we as citizens need to demand accountability. We need advocacy, we need pressure on elected officials, on the courts, on the coverage of this issue, because hunger in one of the richest countries in the world is a scandal. Fourth, for every viewer watching, if you are able, support your local food pantry. Talk about this issue in your community. Vote with this in mind. I believe this Supreme Court decision was a mistake, not because of legal complexity necessarily. I'm not a judge at the end of the day, but because the human cost is too high. The signal is too dark, the precedent too dangerous. We cannot accept a system where families are on the edge because of delayed food benefits. Food is a right, not a bargaining chip. In closing, to every family worried tonight, your struggle matters, your hunger matters, and we will not stay silent. If we all allow programs like SNAP to be undermined without outcry, we become complicit. Now guys, for above reasons, make sure that you share this video, comment below with your thoughts. Are you someone, or do you know anyone impacted? How do you feel about this decision? What should be done? Well, make sure you leave a comment, and also make sure to like, subscribe, and share as well. And until next time, guys, stay safe.